Hi, I'm Richard Ryan and I'm going to talk to you today about stalking knives. I didn't know anything about knives when I got into deer stalking, and I was walking along in a little country fair one day and I saw very similar to this knife, this huge great big swept thing that just looked cool. I went up to the guy, which happened to be Dean Boyd at Emberleaf Knives, which is the first time I ever met him. I said, oh, I really like that. A good friend of mine, who was a mentor of mine as well, said, no, you don't want that, Rich. You want a drop point. And I didn't really understand why. I looked at Dean and I said, do you think you could cut the tip off that and make it into a drop point? Which is a ridiculous thing to say because you can't really reshape a knife once it's been made, but I didn't know that at the time. And he went, yeah, no problem, what do you want it to be? What's it for? So I explained it was for deer stalking, this sort of thing, running up the inside. Dean went away, and at the time he was making bushcraft knives, not stalking knives. He started talking to me about steels and shapes and blade geometry and all these things that went way over my head. I don't know, 15 years later, I've got probably in excess of 30 custom knives, which isn't a lot by any stretch of the imagination. I've got 17 of Dean's. I've always got them on rotation. I use them, like all of these are pretty battered with the exception of this, which I have used, but I've just had resheathed. That is long enough to get into an oryx and nick the bit you need to nick to get the blood coming out. That is long enough on a row to get in and do the same. And it's that type of thing. When you look at knife, it's such a simple object, but then you really get into it. When you look at your average knife, well, was a knife 300, 400, 1,000 pounds, 10,000 pounds? When you look at something like this Emberleaf Kale, this is made from steel called AEBL. That was a razor steel, I believe, designed by Gillette. It's very similar to a lot of the Nordic steels. It is on a molecular level, pretty impressive. You can take that down to twice surgical standard. The steel will take it without fraying or folding. By default, it's very good on bone. If you accidentally hit bone or when you're gralloching deer, it's a fantastic knife in that regard. It's very, very rust resistant. So this drop point refers to this blade shape where it's not a, almost like a swept tip. You see the difference in those. It's actually got a bit of a curve down into it because it's another Emberleaf, but the blade would be swept out if it was not a drop point anyway. And this means that in terms of functionality, if you're running along the inside of a deer, you can run that knife fairly safely along. So if you're inside the breast cage, for example, and you've gone up from the stomach, you can rest that on the top of the rib cage, rather, or breast cage, top of the rib cage, run that knife up, and you're not going to cut into it, you're cutting away from it. So it's quite a useful thing to be able to run up and be cutting away, and the knife is trying to cut upwards towards you. If it was angled down, you'd naturally want to be going down into the animal, which is not good. You're trying to avoid piercing anything. Whereas if you're running along the top of that, and this knife is razor sharp, probably still, they certainly arrive that way, you can see that I can run that safely across. Whereas if it was this shape, it's less easy because there's a tendency to push down. The narrowness of this blade is there for a reason as well. If you look at your traditional knives, they would be not this long, but they'd probably be that wide. In the UK, when we're talking about how we go in and gralloch deer and getting in to do the fine work, typically around the back end, which is what everyone struggles with, you're kind of going in. If you've got a great big wide knife, now this is wider still, great shape, but it's clearly designed for a different market. So if you were in America or Europe and you were processing bigger animals, getting around the backside to take out the pipe to avoid any contamination of the carcass wouldn't be such a deal. When you've got something as narrow as that, it's much, much easier, especially if you're dealing with Roman muntjac, to get around. If you think of coring an apple, for want of a better analogy, if you were going round, you've got much more dexterity going round inside something like that than you have trying to maneuver something like this, which is, I'm actually shaking, trying not to cut myself because I feel how sharp this one is. You haven't got the dexterity to get around. So that's why Dean came up with this shape. It's been so popular. He took a few of these to a shooting fair, I think a few months later, and he came and he said, I put those straight up, they sold immediately. This was a longer knife, designed more for the hill. They were looking at something a bit longer and a bit meatier for reds. Basically wanted a heavier knife, and it's a good all-purpose knife. I don't like the shape as much as this. It's got a Scandi grind, which is you can see the angle on that blade that goes down to a point. This is a bevel, so it does taper down, but then there's a nice easy micro bevel, which means when you're sharpening, you can just put it on your standard easy thing. Dean will kill me for saying that because you should sharpen it properly, but this is easier. And he knows it's easy, that's why he does it. He knows it's an easier option to sharpen it. There are good tools out there for sharpening, but you don't get the razor fine edge you get on the Scandi grind, but you do still get a really good sharp knife, and this is still the same quality steel, so you still hold an edge better than your cheaper stuff. If we take this Gerber, this is it's clever design because it's just a disposable surgical steel blade. It's a reasonable quality stainless, but the minute it's blunt, you're not going to resharpen it, you just throw it away, buy another one. A little bit like a Mora, it's sharp enough, it'll do it. It's thin, again, this is a clever design by Gerber. It's a nice, easy knife to work with. I keep it as kind of like an emergency knife. There's a big difference in tools, and a good analogy I always say is if someone says, explain to me why that is better than that, or a Mora, and I'll go, cheap hammer, 10 quid jobby versus decent hammer, 50 to 100 quid jobby. And anyone who's ever worked all day with a hammer will go, I know exactly what you mean. And they just do. It's those better tools that are better in the hand, that are designed specifically for what it is you're doing. They're well balanced, they feel good, it's nice to work with. It's a knife, sure, but when you get into it and you start to look at those things, you start to understand how much work's gone into creating something that fine out of the materials they've used, how premium those materials are, what they're designed to do, how strong it is, how sharp it is, that someone's hand work. This is mammoth ivory. That's the handle he's found, and he's shaped and worked with that. Even the pommel, fitting that perfectly, putting everything in so it looks nice, so it's flash, that's all done by hand. It's beautiful work, and it's that pride of ownership in something that's just such a lovely tool to use that makes you go, oh yeah, I'm going to have to buy another one. This is a little knife by a guy called Mike Irie. I think he's an American guy living in England. I don't think I've got an Alan Wood with me today, but a lot of people, Alan Wood's kind of the grandfather of stalking knives, certainly in the UK if you like. And there's lots of things that you compare. They're different, no one's exactly copied Alan, but he has this very typical shape, which Alan did a lot of. This is quite not dissimilar. His name's Thomas Weldon, maker in York, beautiful knife. And he's got adapted that Alan Wood shape. He's a bit wider, so I prefer Dean's design in terms of usability function. In terms of looks, I love this, and for bigger animals it's great. That's one of my favourite knives just for light row work, because it's handy in your pocket. I don't know it's there, it doesn't weigh anything. It's narrow enough to do all that fine work. He's actually gone quite fine tip. Because it's so small, I can easily put that on my finger. And that's that nice thing. He has got a micro bevel, but he's got this wonderful thick blank that he's gone down to a very skinny taper by the time he's got to the bevel. So super easy to keep sharp. He's really thought about what he's using it for. So when you're laying your finger on that, you can feel each time that your finger's in the right place without having to look. Not looking to say, I've got my finger in the point. Right, I know that my knuckle, or the inside of my knuckle, goes on that point there. And that just makes it a nice knife to use when I'm working through. Even the shape and the handle, that handle's too small for me, but he's thought about what it's been used for. And when you're using it like this, you've got that nice bit to rest your thumb. It's just these nice things that all these makers put in. His handle works beautiful. Like there's not a glue line. When I look at knives, I'm looking at things that don't match up. You'd notice it if you're a shooter on a gun, if something was off center or not quite right. And it's the same with knives. When you look at it and think, what's his pin work like? Has he put that in nicely? Has he had to do any nasty filing? All these little details he's put in. Lots of people make teeny tiny little mistakes when they're making knives. When you get one that is truly perfect, and most of Alan Wood's stuff I've ever seen has been truly perfect. I think I've got some of his offcasts that are quite hard to get hold of, and I bought them off I think old friends who've passed away, and given them to their sons, and they've ended up back in circulation. I love to go to Africa, I love plains game, and having something that was designed for purpose by someone I know and whose work I really appreciate. This steel was RWL 34 because that was the thing you could get a nice thick blank of at the time. This handle, there's actually a joint within this pommel. The reason there's this band here is it's two-part. So we actually had to join the tang, which is the part that runs through your handle. So you'd have a partial tang and a full tang. If it's running all the way through, it's full tang. This, because of the handle shape, because I wanted this feel to it, because it's a big heavy knife, and if you're working with it and you haven't got that grip and that, you don't want to risk it slipping out because of the size of it and the weight of it. He's put this join in there, so it's actually connected to your pommel, the end bit, so it retains that strength. But incredible work for all that to have matched up, and a lot of thought gone into making that a really usable knife. And when you've got something, a decent steel IWL 34, which has been tempered properly and worked properly and sharpened by an expert, then you've got something that is a beautiful piece of workmanship. Having a nice tool for the job is great. It's like a great pair of boots or a great rifle, a great scope, great optic. If you can stretch to it, I highly recommend it. It's great. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. All right, they're tools for the jobs. They're great. Like a 150 quid rifle will shoot as many deer as a 10,000 pound rifle. It's just a pleasure of use thing. Having the right tool is always nice. Having great tools and nice tools is always more fun to work with. If I'm grannicking a deer, and that to me is kind of the hardest part of any stalk, is the processing of that deer. I like a really nice tool to do it with, and if I've got a nice sharp tool that I enjoy working with, then it's less of an ag for me.